I thank you very much. We are talking about the human factor in cybersecurity, and the humans are missing in the room. I guess the people who are sitting in the back, if they can cooperate with me a little bit and come to the front, it'll be a great service to whatever we are going to do. So, volunteer, please. All right, so I think we are already running behind the schedule, and I would like to keep it as tight as I am asked to do. Before I call my panelists, which also was a bit of a surprise for me, because many people, due to the obvious coronavirus, had cancelled their trip, so I had to kind of assemble a panel overnight. Yeah, actually overnight, you're right. So let me just invite the panelists here, and then we'll do a small brief on what we are going to discuss, what is this human factor, and then would seek participation from all of you who are in the room. So please welcome Foram Mehta. Foram is the head of information security at an APAC level for PayPal. Welcome, Foram. My friend, in many ways, my mentor too, Burgess Cooper. Burgess is the partner for information security at EY. Welcome, Burgess. You can just bring them up. There is I have the privilege of again, last year also I moderated a panel with him as a panelist. So welcome Manish Tiwari. Manish is the group CISO of Bharti Airtel, one of the greatly surviving telcos in India. So welcome Manish. Last but not the least, I have Venkatesh Subramaniam. Venkatesh leads the global CISO role at Olam International. So just look at the variety of the panel from my extreme right, which is Olam, which is in agribusiness. Yes. In agribusiness, to a telco, to a fintech, and to one of the big fours in the advisory and consulting space. So, before we go on to crucify these panelists with odd questions, I have not given them any preparation. So all of them will have a surprise check on their knowledge. So I was referring to a slightly dated research from the University of. Oh yes, sorry. So as we talk, you will see. You will see our friend Vatsal from EY doing a mind map, which is a live mind map, which means that whatever they are speaking is going to be projected here. And those who are interested in having that knowledge later on can please let us know. We'll mail this to you. So as I said, that I was referring to a slightly dated research which happened in 2018 at the University of Maryland. It's an academic paper. It's not a research done by any infosec company or group. And very just the abstract part of it, I will read for you. And it gives a flavor of how ignorant we are about the human factor in cybersecurity domain. So it says that human factor remains unexplored and underappreciated in information security. Mark these two words, unexplored and underappreciated. The mounting cyber attacks, data breaches, ransomware attacks as a result of human-enabled errors, in fact, they are 95% of all cyber incidents which are human-enabled. 95%. And whom do we blame at the end of it is that technology is not working. Or the CISO. Or the CISO is bad. Research indicates that existing information security plans do not account for human factors in risk management or auditing. Corporate executives, managers, and cybersecurity professionals rely extensively on technology to avert cybersecurity incidents, and very fallaciously believe that technology is the key to improving security defenses, even though the research says otherwise, that new technologies create unintended consequences. Nonetheless, technology-induced errors are all human-enabled. So you're getting my point. Even if the technology is foolproof, technology is proven, it's tested, it's done, the induction of error in the technology solution or technology deployment is all human related. So, another very startling fact, if I tell you that in year 2015, and it's a very, very 5 years ago, a report indicated that 4 or 5 companies, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase, these 4 companies put together invested $1.5 billion in mitigating emerging and persisting cyber threats. Imagine, just 4 companies and $1.5 billion of investment in cybersecurity.
I wonder who was the consultant here.
Yeah, so that you should find out. Okay, so I think enough of reading of data from my side. However, I would like to now kickstart the discussion. Some really blatant opening thoughts from all of you, starting with you, Burgess, as to how do you evaluate the human factor in cybersecurity, and where are the weak links, where is the lacuna?
Sure, thanks. So when you said 5 years ago, I'm sure you meant 5 Nalcons ago.
Yeah, 5 Nalcons ago.
On that note, I think when we say human factor for security, most of us look at plain, simple learning and awareness. But I would sort of rephrase that, more than learning and awareness, I think it's the attitude of that security guy which counts. If he's a threat hunter, does he really like, to hunt between the eyes? If he's a red teamer, does he really have the kill to get that vulnerability which most others will not find? Or is he happy to settle for the easiest one? If he's a defender, will he really be able to safeguard his whole estate behind, in spite of knowing that there are 100 holes? So more than learning and awareness, for me, the most important part of the human factor for a cyber researcher or the people in the audience is your attitude towards security. Do you really want to hunt between the eyes? Do you want to really make an impact? Or are you just okay and awareness is good and life will go on there? That's my opening lines.
So wonderful point that your attitude towards security will decide how robust the cybersecurity plan could be.
Or whether your CXO survives the job or not. That's the next discussion.
Yeah, because either they are responsible. How many of you work in corporates here? Show of hands. Oh my God, lot of them. So your CXO's job depends on how you perform in the organization and how well versed are you.
No pressure.
How well versed are you with the errors that humans create. So I will quickly move on to forum. Your initial comments on what we are discussing today as we move to specific questions.
Sure. I think just on the thought just on the line with the numbers that you put together on the number of breaches and how humans are the weakest link, it is important to understand how we function. And we haven't, as a discipline, invested enough in truly understanding. For example, this corona outbreak that is going on, there's been incredible number of advisories. Every single doctor, everybody who's worth their money has said, do not wear masks unless you are sick. And just in this room alone, we see so many people doing exactly what will actually lead you to be getting sick if you are not already sick, because now you're going to touch your face that many times. You're going to try and remove it, put it somewhere, and then put it back on your face. So the idea is that, it's very important to understand why we do what we do, and then find from a corporate perspective ways in which how we can incentivize the right kind of behavior or disincentivize bad kind of behavior. So from a PayPal perspective, again, we don't think of all humans as the same or only thinking of the employees and not thinking of the developers. I broadly, I think, segment humans into 3 categories. One is our customers, everybody who is outside, and we think of them as our customers. And what is it that they want to do? Some of them are probably in this room, and some of them are attackers, some of them are users. But how can we make sure that the good behavior is incentivized and bad is not? The second are the builders, and what do we do to make sure the products that we create are the right kind of products? And third are the operators or the users. And as we go through the links, I'll say how one particular approach may work really well for one segment, and it may not work well for the others. But it's important to not treat everybody in the same bucket. And the core principle, just as Berger said, if attitude since we're doing the mind map is one area, I think from my perspective, the biggest and the most important, considering cyber as a discipline, is to try and keep it as simple as possible. So simplicity in this complex world is extremely important when we talk about human factors.
So yeah, good 2 points here. Incentivize the right behavior. I don't know how many companies follow this in letter and spirit, but I haven't really seen incentives being rolled out for the good behavior. However, I have seen
Deterrence.
Deterrence for the bad behavior, which is also a good practice. However, so sorry, sir, Manish sir, your opening comments.
So, if you're talking about the human angle, which impacts cybersecurity, I mean, let's look at it from two perspectives. 99.9% of the people in any organization barely understand IT, leave aside IT security. So I think it is more about how to, and no disrespect, the fact is it is not their core business. They may be tech savvy, but they do not understand the intricacies of information technology or IT security. So I think it's about simplification. It's about very simple and clear and strong messages. It's about human mind, which tends to forget things a little too frequently. So it's also about reminding people at a regular interval. Sensitization campaigns should be run on a regular basis so as to keep that human mind fresh on some of the basic aspects of cybersecurity. And then I come to the core element of the actual cyber warriors, which are supposed to protect the entire organization. Now, with the current focus on automation, there is a lot of belief that, look, the human element, why is it important? In the armed forces, we love to say that, look, irrespective of what happens, for the foreseeable future, there will always be a man or a woman behind the machine. So there is nothing called 100% automation as of today. I'd like to share this with you. In Bharti Airtel, we have currently, over a period of 1 year, with a lot of effort and dedication of the team, 70% of my security operations right up to incident response is automated. 70%.
Okay.
Right? Now, going forward, raising the bar is going to be very, very difficult because you can reach a benchmark, but beyond that, if you have to raise the bar, but we continue to do that. But there is a very, very strong team of people, working relentlessly. The most important thing for any job, and cybersecurity is no different, is what is the aptitude of the person.
Yes.
All right. You may have, in fact, I was speaking to an ex-colleague, just shortly before coming into this room. You may want to do, something specifically in cybersecurity, but you have to, as an individual and as a professional, really understand your own strengths and limitations, or what are your strengths and where does your aptitude take you? Because eventually, that is not just important for your individual success. It's also a very important contributing factor for the success of your team and your organization. So I think that aptitude part is extremely, extremely important.
So it's just warming up. I will include people's participation, the people who are listening, their participation also once we hear from Venkatesh.
Hi. First, good morning to all of you. Talking about the human factor, usually we say that the human or the employee is the weakest link in the organization. But if we kind of put it in a more positive fashion, I would say that, the employee can actually be the greatest strength that you have. So I would say that, from a human factor, it is true. I mean, statistics do indicate that 25% of incidents are purely just because of some employee actually making an error, right? I mean, an employee clicking on a link, etc. So I would say that the two aspects that we as CISOs need to focus on is, and we use this word awareness very often. But I would say that, if we look at training, I mean, training people to be self-reliant and to be able to defend the organization. So I would say for the employees, one aspect I would emphasize is the amount of training that you can give on a repeated fashion. And when I mean training, where I would like us to be a little different is that, all people have got day jobs, right? So you're trying to do an awareness campaign, you're trying to send a newsletter. Nobody's going to look at that because they all have their day jobs. So if you can make that training a little bit more interesting, like, through some form of gamification, etc., and actually make sure, like, that key message that what they should and they should not do, if that is kind of deeply imbibed in them, that will be a great win for you. So training is one aspect. And the other is, like, what some of my other panelists also spoke, is the culture. So the culture is a little different from training, wherein, like, it should actually be kind of a second nature. So, I mean, how do we actually make sure that, we reward, like, cases of good behavior, like, of reporting of incidents, of cases like that. And also in cases like, where people are actually trying to hide, right? Either deliberately or, like, through a lapse in judgment. We have to actually start taking actions. So what we do not do well today is we just run these campaigns, but there is no consequence of that. So as long as we can build a consequence mechanism and then make that as a part of, like, the culture, I think we will go a long way in making at least that employee aspect, like, which is considered to be the weakest link, that will become, like, our greatest strength for the organization.
Yeah, so, great 2 points coming here from what Venkatesh said is the culture of the organization needs to be very, very carefully pursued by the management and percolated in the larger ecosystem. Also about the training aspect. I will come to that. I have a small challenge on the training aspect, whether training is the only thing that we can provide to humans, or we can cultivate them in some other ways as well. So Burgess, very interesting point that I have captured from the research. Unfortunately, I couldn't share it with you, is that the researchers and human factors experts vehemently emphasize that technology alone will not ameliorate information security. Big fact. Therefore, organizations need to leverage behavioral specialists to examine cybersecurity operations from cognitive and bias viewpoints. Now, my question to you is not this. This was a preface to my question. The question is that, what goes in the mind of an rogue insider, or what goes in the mind of a unethical hacker, which is driving him to exploit the vulnerabilities, which is driving him to do bad stuff, making him a bad actor.
All right, I'll answer the question in 2 ways, and thanks for not letting me know before. I think humans have evolved from the Stone Age. You said tech is not important. In the Stone Age, the tech was a hammer and a chisel. Today, it's sophisticated, right? They've evolved, they've adapted. Okay, the reason is because the human mind is able to sort of, keep on withstanding a challenge and succumb to that. That's from a defender's perspective. Now, an attacker or an unethical hacker, whatever you call it, always looks at the element of surprise. Okay?
Yes.
For him, it is of doing something what is not expected. It is of being where you're not sort of planned to be in. And if he has to make an impact on what he has to sort of prove himself or whatever he's trying to do, he has to capture that element of unknowing knowing, or be where you are not expected to be, where normal defenders will not be able to utilize his adaptability or versatility to say, okay, this guy is a pattern. Try and be as different, as low, as challenging enough so that the defenses, and that's what our red teamers do. Our red teamers also do the same thing. They will try and emulate the best attacker to think the best thing or the worst thing which he will do, so that you bring your worst, we'll do our best. And that's the same game. Whether you train your red teamer to think like that and protect the company, or a bad guy, as you said, sort of does that. But the thinking process is same. The attacker's advantage, Ramcharan's book. What is the attacker's advantage that you can give on the defenses that he or she has not thought of? Attacking on a 25th Christmas day. Stuff like that.
So extending this, the same question to you, Foram, and the behavioral part of it, the fear of unknown is the maximum fear of unknown originates from the unknown behavioral aspect of human beings, and those human beings you can bucket in all the three aspects that you talked about, the three stakeholders, which are humans. So how to deal with this nuance of behavioral changes, and how that one corner of mind impacts at that point and triggers the attack or triggers anything malefic.
So I'll give, maybe touch two, try and keep some time left for the other panelists. But very easily, a lot of you who are application security researchers, we were consistently for quarters after quarter, one of the most attacked websites in the world. Even though we've been around for 20 years, the kind and the nature of the business that we do requires us to stay online and requires us to be secure at all times. And we were getting, on one hand, we were acquiring a lot of companies, so our internet footprint was growing. So we started this bug bounty program about 8 years ago. Right? Initially, it was very counterintuitive. Not only are we not going to stop people from coming after us, we're going to actually reward them to poke holes at our websites. And, again, now a lot of you probably participate. Every year we pay anywhere between $2 to $3 million, and a large majority of it, I'm proud to say, are researchers that come from India. But it is, it's really commendable to how the space has grown.
Thanks to Nalcons of the world. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So, that's a very good example of how not only trying to create an opportunity in a way that people can learn something and apply the skills in a more responsible manner and inform the organization so that it's not just for lulls, it's not just for some kind of a street cred, but it's actually going to help the organization do what we want to do, help you what you want to do in a better fashion. Turning it in-house, from a pure corporate website, corporate network security perspective. So coincidentally, human element was also the team at RSA, and predominantly everybody was talking about insider threat. For a company that is, available in 200 markets with 56 actual offices around the world, insider threat becomes a big issue when we have to do businesses in Russia, in China, in Iran, in a lot of other countries wherever, the sanctions allow us to do certain things.
Not just the human virus effect. So
exactly.
The countries you mentioned matches that.
True. So what we've done is, looked at the core aspect of what decides behavior within an enterprise. And we've come to two key elements. One is the identity of a user, identity of a device, identity of a system, a component, whatever it is. The other is the system itself. And create a baseline behavior. So if you are a developer, at what time you come, what type of access you have, what type of commands you execute, what type of code you upload. And over time, we create a profile at not only at an individual user level, but at a country level, at a city level, at a function level. Same thing for a system. If it is an end user device, it's going to have a baseline of that sort. And together, anytime we see an anomalous behavior from that aspect, from an insider aspect, or a baseline behavior that is already established, it's going to be investigated, and we find ways of how do you make sure whether it is a suspicious one, quarantine them for some time, or outright block them and then investigate further.
So if you study history, the human element, right? It's not the people who have been the strongest who survived. Most of see Constantinople, right? 23 armies tried to attack it, could not. But the one army who could is the one who was the most versatile. Just like a coconut tree, the strong trees get uprooted in a monsoon, but the coconut tree sways, is flexible. So just being rigid on security is not the only way, but being adaptable, being learning, being situationally aware, and on the fly making your defenses from an attack perspective.
No, interesting, but this versatility comes from where? Who who's the igniting force that, we should become
That's the
versatile?
CISO's job to create the
That's
culture.
the CISO's job.
To create the culture.
Okay.
I mean, not his only job. Show is the management, but he has to be the driving force for that. Agree?
I have a very specific question for you. You mentioned that you have automated 70% of the incident response within your organization. Now, when you say
correction. It's not 70% of incident response. I'm saying 70%
All
of
security control.
security
All security
operation on security.
operations are automated. Okay. No, so I correct myself here. However, even after deployment of automated countermeasures, malicious actors gain access to targeted systems by exploiting the human error. So human error still remains there.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So, whether it is spear phishing, whether it is social engineering, whether it is malware attack, non-compliance, poor policies, anything, so how do you deal with that? How do you ensure that, even after 70% of automation, this human factor is still prevalent?
So let me say this, that when I talked about 70% of it's what goes into the core of security operations, and that's more to do with automation around the same part. But on a scale of 0 to 10, if you were to ask me that how much percentage of that would take care of the entire landscape for IT security and threat management, whether internal or external, in a company like Airtel, I would say it's less than 1%. So that 70% was so let me just explain that. Now, coming back to your core question, guys, insider threat continues to remain one of the most vulnerable pain points. And it could be on account of two reasons. One is an employee making a mistake is probably as dangerous an employee in a critical function. Now, just imagine if they have done something on the production environment, because you have to trust people. There are people who are working in the production environment, and if they have done something in the production environment, and God forbid, it leaves gaps or it leaves holes or a vulnerability in the ecosystem, then that itself is a potential for disaster. Or somebody makes some critical changes, fine, you will detect it, but by the time you detect it, it would have already caused a disruption in your business continuity. Then the other category of insider threat would be disgruntled employees. Let's not forget that. And of course, those with the intention of doing wrong for the purpose of some sort of gratification, which could be on or that's the disgruntled part. And the second is where somebody wishes to basically defraud. That insider, I would rather put on the fraud, in the category of fraud. And any large organization, any company has to be alert to the possibility of fraud and data theft, IPR. So some employee walks away with important IPR, that itself is a matter of concern. So the first and foremost thing is that, look, and since we are talking about the human factor, let me bring it to that, is that when organizations find a problem, find an incident, detect an incident, they are able to pinpoint responsibility for that incident. How many organizations actually take strict action? So when I say strict action, means everybody wants to sort of, hush it up, push it under the carpet, give a very silent exit because they think it's bad for I think it's about setting the right example. If there is somebody who's done something wrong, it's extremely important that that person be penalized. And a clear message goes to the others that, look, this is what happens when you do wrong, and we take very strict actions. We have a zero tolerance policy right now.
No, so just to interrupt you, camouflage this information the way you want it, but can you tell some incident which has happened and which is related to the human errors?
As I said, any large organizations will always have incidents of fraud. So proactively, what is it that you do? One is where you reactively look at incidents and see, okay, if this is a case of fraud, how do and we have never noticed this earlier because human minds are very, very, intelligent that way. They figure out how to get things done. So you figure out and create a use case out of it. See how you can strengthen your systems, your information systems, to either prevent or detect something like this happening in future so that you can immediately catch it and arrest it. So that is more reactive. But the proactive part is that you always have to have a dedicated team. How many organizations, and I'm not talking of the large, small ones, even large organizations, how many large organizations actually have a dedicated team working on fraud management? I'm not talking of the banks, right? I'm not talking about business fraud. I'm talking about managing fraud through application of IT and IT security controls. So within the IT team, because today, most of the organizations are literally driven by IT systems. Their life depends upon it. And that's where lots of frauds actually happen. That's a dedicated effort that is needed. You talked about an example. Yes, I can go back in history, somewhere in 2004, 2005. And I'm sure everybody knows what the armed forces of the country are. We had a case of some sensitive data leaking from the headquarters. And, that's a very long story. I don't want to go into it. But the fact of the matter was there were weak controls. There was a motive. The motive was financial benefit.
Okay.
So one is where you take action which sends a clear message. Second is where you make it economically unviable for anybody, internal or external, to do what they want to do with the malintent purpose. And the third is, have better IT security controls.
Sure. I also know what happened to that person.
No, so, point that you have brought out is important, that human factors should include a thorough study of human interaction with information systems, human interaction with networks, human interaction with practices in information security environment. So, as you said, training. So is simple plain training enough? Do you think that works? I don't think that works.
So yeah, just training itself, would not work. But see, I mentioned two things, right? One is training, and then the other is the culture. So it's extremely critical. I mean that, for organizations, at least from a human factor perspective, the entire, the culture of security is actually top down. So for example, if the CEO of your organization is not going to be subject to similar standards as you're going to subject to other people. For example, I'll give you an example. When I conduct my phishing campaigns, I also send it to the CEO of the company. I send it to the board also, because they ask me in the board meetings, right? I mean, what is your percentage, etc. We also got to let them know, are they also clicking on the same link, right? And we also tend to target at spear phishing kind of campaigns. So the same standards should be applicable, to our top management. And why I'm mentioning this culture is, if it is top down, then it seeps down to the other people in the company, and then they would be able to take care of a lot of these things. So if it is not, for example, if your CEO is not subject to the same controls, and if he's not going to be security savvy, how can I ask my junior people who are handling sensitive information, how can I ask them? So as far as possible, you as a CISO have to also have those one-on-one conversations with your senior management, so that they are aware that unless they themselves show that behavior, and then they can confidently even go in a town hall and tell the other people that this is is expected of them. That will go a long way in improving that. So not just training, as such, but training should be very important. So training is still, I would say, multiple rounds of reinforcements for people, I think that's non-negotiable. People, and that's why I said that, all these different kinds of do it in different manners. If you've got something like a Facebook at workplace, make it fun, make it entertaining, do gamification. But at the end of the day, they have to realize, and as a technology also, you have to help them. For example, we all mentioned about phishing emails, right? So phishing emails, usually who it comes from, right? It's somebody says the CEO has sent a mail, to the finance CFO, asking for a payment, right? But if the email is coming in from outside the organization, at least from a technology perspective, you can put a header which is saying external or something like that, which can alert people rather than expecting them to look through all aspects. It's from a technology perspective, you try to make it easier for them. And then you educate them that, use this basis, use these as cues, to not to exhibit, those behaviors. So it's a combination. So I would say that training does go a long way. And one last thing, Rahul also, let's not also over-engineer these things like behavior aspects, right? So the thing is, sometimes, see, we are all organizations of different sizes, right? A very large organization may have the kind of resources and to kind of invest in behavior specialists, etc. But a normal organization is not going to have that. So it is your responsibility of the CISO to continuously keep driving that awareness or training down on a regular basis.
It's necessary but not sufficient. And something else like a cyber war gaming, which, if you read something, you remember 10%, if you write 20%, but if you experience something, and experiential learning makes you remember, and behavior. So behavior to habit to sort of just be, it's part of culture.
Okay, I'm opening up for questions. Brian, you had a question. If we can have a mic for
Jackson, a few questions? Pin them down. Best chance. Ravish.
Can I request one of the mics?
It's a thing to me to shut up.
No.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Brian Pereira. I'm the editor of CXO magazine, which is produced by EC Council. One of the discussions I have with international CXOs is the challenge of communicating security to the board. I know Venkatesh just touched upon that. And it's especially a challenge to get, budget, to increase your budgets from board. And the board really takes things serious only when you hear of an attack like Capital One and so on. Then they start asking questions. What is your strategy for communicating cyber security to the board? And I'm told that some of them don't even understand some of the technical terms. Yeah.
So while they'll answer, this is the question of the 2:00 discussion. So please join.
Okay, I'll come back for that.
Antriksh has to join the next one. He just jumped the question of the 2:00.
So I'll just try to put it in a very brief context. It's a very good question. And yes, see, resources are always limited. You will always have to, pitch for those limited resources. And part of the job of a CISO is how do you sell the thing internally. And let me not dwell too much on the word sell. It's about how do you take what is in the interest of the organization and convince the decision makers who control the purses to give you what you want so that you can secure the organization. I think the most important thing is that you seek alignments with business. You also do an impact assessment saying that, look, this is where we are, this is how we could get impacted, and this could be the possible negative impact if we don't do this, and this. And this is sort of proactively at a very high level, educating the decision makers that, look, there is a potential risk of a huge amount of business disruption, negative impact to brand, and possible loss of revenue if at least certain actions, basic security controls and technologies are not put into place.
Manish, while you write, while it's negative, a modern way of looking is the positive part. If you put better security, does it mean more business? It's just not negative saying, if you don't do this happens wrong, but if you do good security from right, this is the better part of it.
So you try the first part. If that doesn't work, then try the second.
Which comes first, I'll leave it to the guys.
Okay, any other questions here? There are a lot of hands. So I will curtail my questions now. I think.
I just wanted to. I hope the audience caught, Burgess' point. I think that's extremely important for the modern CISO. We have always been thinking security more as a defensive shield. I think we have to get out of it and start thinking security more as a growth driver, as a competitive advantage. And that's how you communicate to the board. And in a lot of our discussions, if we can even take this offline, but you got to have those conversations where your partners, for example, in case of Olam, we do business, with top companies like Nestle, Mondelez, etc. Do they have confidence in you? So a lot of that business, is driven out of, are you able to protect, their information?
I actually started by saying you have to align with business. So your conversations, you have to find alignment with business. If you're not aligned with business, then you're not aligned with the company.
mic there. Yeah, please.
My name is Jay Kumar. I work for Azure Security. So I accept the point Venkatesh said. So the training is important. We conduct trainings yearly, twice or thrice. Also, we give it in the name of strike training. We have seen the percentage of people clicking on spear phishing or phishing emails lesser. But sometimes we have seen people who click on, people who work on cybersecurity itself. Example, a SOC team. So people work on SOC team itself fall for phishing attacks. So they don't have a proper mindset. So one of the things is I worked with Burgess in Bangladesh on a project. So we set up a SOC there and we were training people to work on SOC. And they know how to do an alert or they know how to send an alert to the customer. But they don't have a proper mindset if they see a different scenario or different type of attack or something. So I've seen in multiple SOCs, they don't have a proper mindset from the beginning. They just know how to look at a document, fill it, and for the employees, I'm fine. But what about the security people? So how do they grow the mindset? How can we improve this?
So that's where the aptitude part comes in. And typically what happens is that if you are selecting in the industry, if you're conducting an interview, you're shortlisting people for a role, in Airtel, we spend a lot of time and effort in seeing what is the aptitude of the person. So trainability is a factor. All right. In psychology, it's called trainability factor. If a person has the aptitude, then you can train him or her to do a lot more than they currently know. But they could have 7 years of experience in SOC, but if they don't have the right aptitude, they will never ever reach an L3 or a level beyond that. So that's an exercise that we do. In fact, we mentor college students. We say, listen, I know you want to do this, but I think you're more suited for this and you will have much better success in future if you pursue this particular direction. So it's about aptitude, and it's always good to talk to people who are experts in the field to really understand where and what is what you're suited most for.
Okay, I have just 4 or 5 minutes left. I will take 2 more questions. Can we have the question from here, and then I will give it to you.
Just consulting after this.
Huh? Yeah. So Burgess is offering consulting after this free of cost. So
Free of cost.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, sure.
My name is Salman. I work for the Blue Team in Microsoft. First of all, thank you all for your discussion. It's very interesting and been very engaging. So my question to you guys, Burgess especially, is like you touched upon looking at between the eyes, right? Catching up incidents which you don't usually catch up from an IOC perspective and things like that, right? So basically, if I talk about an insider threat, which all of you touched upon, right? There was attacks like in 2016, there was a person named Andrew who worked for Google and who took in data about pre-planned for about 5 months. And then he moved to Uber and used those things. So as a hunter myself, as a Blue Team member, how do we look at these things? Because there's so much data coming in, there are IOCs we are looking at, there are Intel coming in. But the ground reality is to look at these things, to look at the behavioral models, people logging in at one time, people logging off is good. But looking at what an attacker really wants, that's not really, ground reality situations.
Great question. I'll answer first in a funny note. First is join consulting. You'll get to experience multiple clients, right?
You're doing hard selling, but it's not allowed. Sorry.
I love good talent. But the question is, how do you fine tune a blue teamer to hit between the eyes, detect the attacks? I think there's nothing but keep on wargaming, being paranoid, keep on doing across industries, different types of attacks, keep on doing different models, right? Keep on challenging, and that's the part we spoke. He spoke about aptitude, I spoke about attitude. When you have both, you are successful threat hunter, as in your case you want to be, or a CTI or whatever. But you got to have that kill of knowing that I really want to find, or I'm doing a SOC, watch the voice 8-hour shift and go away. Or you really want to find that because you want it for the pleasure. When a hunter hunts, he hunts for food or he hunts for shooting between the eyes and then hunts. What type of a hunter are you? That's the difference. One more point since you're closing. The attacks, as my friend mentioned, colleague mentioned, are first financials. In the new vector, we spoke about defenses, but no one spoke about the attacks. The attacks are now going for the digital life. More and more hackers are going. Banks, telcos are being attacked. So is like manufacturing. But the digital life, what we all enjoy, this is the new sweet spot for attackers. The human element, the topic of the human, they're so used to the soft, cozy, all-encompassing digital life. That is where the new attacks are going to be. The new attack vectors are going to come.
The only thing I want to add is threat hunting. It cannot be a part-time job. In an organization, if you're serious about it, it has to be a dedicated job by a dedicated team who keep doing this, because it is a cat and mouse game.
Last question. But just one last question.
Okay.
Let her give an approach. I will, with permission from Antariksh, I will certainly get back to you for the last question. I cannot say last, but she raised her hand first. I will just get back.
Thank you so much.
Sylvia.
Panel, you all talked about awareness, training, and things like that. But IT or technology currently is being used as a tool, not as a focus. So a lot of people, employees in various companies, focus on what their job is supposed to be, not IT especially, which is used as a tool, but what their job is supposed to be. So, and you even mentioned about people being tech savvy. But a lot of people aren't like that, and a lot of people want to be knowledge. They want knowledge about their job, not IT or not how to protect themselves. That's not what we all focus on. So how do we cross from what we earn and how we protect? How is it possible for employees who are earning to know the knowledge, to get the knowledge about security too?
So I think the first and foremost thing is that it's not just about pushing people. I think there is a lot of positivity that is required in the messaging that goes out, that look guys, the world is changing, right? And you have to change along with the world in order to be better prepared. Today, if you were to tell a 70-year-old, if a 70-year-old, 70 in today's world is not a very big age considering where we are. It's not very far.
Yeah. Don't hide it. Don't hide it anymore.
But can you imagine today a person of 65 to 70 years of age not even being able to operate a smartphone, a laptop? Look at the negative impact in life. There's so many things that they can do sitting at home. Absolute. So I think it's about personal transformation, which means that it is not for an individual. At least that's how I mentor people. I'm saying it's not just as an individual or it's not just as an employee that you need to upskill. It is as an individual for a personal benefit that you need to upskill, because otherwise the world will go on and it will leave you behind.
Completely, it's about survival. Once what the company can do, but what are you doing to ensure you are in the market? Otherwise, you're out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to the point, so while you have a day job, right? That's what's your point, right? And then you have also got to do security. I don't think organizations will have to make this that security is almost like second nature. See, unless that is there, if it's like a different job, I have to do my day job and then I have to do half an hour of training, then it becomes much more difficult. That's why I said that the way you conduct these awareness sessions is something that you really want to learn and do along with your regular job. So that's why a lot of these war games, gamification, have fun around security at your workplace. Then it becomes second nature. Then everybody learns along with the job.
Okay, last.
Hi.
I'm so sorry.
This is Jackson. I'm a part of my previous life. I also had to deal a lot with insider threat. And I wanted, this is not something I come up with, and I worked with Burgess's erstwhile company, and we had come up with a mind share. We said, internally, what does a person need to commit fraud or an incident? You need motivation, you need opportunity, you need justification. I need to be able to commit the fraud. I need to be motivated enough to do it, and I need to rationalize it back to my friends and family that why I did what I did. As CISOs, we like to believe that we wear a cape around our neck and we wear our underpants over our pants, but we are not Superman. We can do only so much with the controls. We can reduce that aspect of it. But the motivation aspect for it, the CISO has to work with your HR departments, with your functional heads. Because if the employee, let's say, is in finance and his boss is a draconian taskmaster, no matter how many controls you put into place, his motivation is still crap. And he's basically going to try to do something to break the system. And if he can justify it, because like Venkatesh mentioned, if you have two sets of standards for the management and another set for the employees, he justifies it. He says, the boss can do it, why can't I do it? Why shouldn't I do it? So it is not enough that and this is my humble opinion, it's not enough as CISOs that we just employ technology to put it. We are closing one aspect of a three-pronged attack, which is the opportunity part of it. But there is still a lot that we have to work with the HR departments and throughout the rest of the organization. Otherwise, we leave motivation and justification open.
I think well put. Motivation, justification, opportunity. These three go hand in hand to get the human element. I think well summarized. And it ends with that.
I think you simplified my job.
That's why
thank you very
you were
much.
the planted guy at the end, yeah? Motivation,
Okay.
justification.
So I think a beautiful mind map is created here. You saw the action, and thanks to our friend there. He did it very on the fly. Burr just asked him, and he prepared it, and then plugged the machine and created it. So if you are interested in knowing this, we will summarize it beautifully, and you can ask for it. We'll send it to you through an. So yeah, we will put it on Nalcon website. You can download it from there. So thank you very much to the great panelists. Let me just tell you, the only panelist who was prepared for this discussion was Horam. The rest, three of them, I have just forced and prepared them overnight. So a big thank you to all of them and a big round of applause.